All right, everyone. So now that we are clear about our approach and how I am going to take up things in class and how you are supposed to revise, let us continue our discussion. But before I start with any particular topic, can you tell me what is your interpretation of law? What, according to you, is law? I don't want any legal definition. I just want your understanding, your interpretation of law. What is law according to you? Exactly. Law is nothing but rules and regulations. Rules everywhere. Rules at home come before 10 o'clock. Sorry, that was rule at my time. Please come before 12 o'clock. Rule of college 75% attendance is compulsory. We don't follow that rule. That is another story. Rule of society, can you walk with a gun? And if somebody pushes you, you shoot him. Can you behave in this manner in the society? No. There are rules and you're expected to follow those rules. So there are rules everywhere. Rules at home, rules in college, rules in society. Similarly, there are rules in business also. If you have purchased goods, you will have to pay for those goods. If you have promised to do something, you will have to fulfill that promise. Wada kiya hai, nibhana to padega. Yes? So there are rules everywhere. When all these rules they come together, it forms an act. And when many acts come together, it forms law. So law is nothing but a set of rules. Now imagine a situation where there are no rules. Okay, I always feel that it is very important for us to know the importance of these rules. You see, when you are at an age where you may feel that, ma'am, these rules are not important for us. And we wait for a day, when we don't have to follow any rules. Like your mom. Okay, so there are so many rules at home. You have to keep your clothes in place, shoes in place, your bag in place, eat properly, sleep on time, take a bath. There are so many rules which they have imposed on you. Like my son is also extremely harassed. He only complains that, oh, let me live my life. Okay, leave that apart. So there are rules everywhere and you have to follow those rules. We always imagine a day when there are no rules to be followed. But what if in reality there are no rules? What will happen to the society? Now, if there are no rules, people will behave the way they want to. They will say whatever they want to. Yes, you're getting the hint, I guess. So they will say whatever they want to. They will behave however they want to. They will spit, they will throw garbage, they will in businesses, they will make promises but fail to honor the promise because there is no fear. There is no rule which says that if you fail to honor your promise, what will be the repercussion of that? If he knows that there is no case which is going to be filed against him because there is no law, there is no rule, people will behave in a manner that suits them. There will be no fear. Okay, imagine in a society there are no rules for robbery, for murder, for rape. So these things will increase because there is no rule. People are not scared. There is no fear. So crimes will increase. What if there are no rules? People with power will take advantage of the weaker section of the society. It's obvious because they know no action can be taken against them. See, don't argue with me, ma'am, but these things happen. There's no fear in India. And people who are powerful, they take advantage of the others. See, I'm discussing purely from a theoretical point of view. Practically, these things may happen. We are not getting into that. And also, these things may be happening, but I'm very sure that if it comes into light, action will be taken against them today or tomorrow. You just cannot live a life wherein you can say anything that you want, hurt others' feelings, or kill and then escape. Some action will definitely be taken. So, leave the practical aspect aside. Let us discuss purely from the theoretical point of view. So yes, when there is no fear, crime will increase. When you know that you are a powerful person and there are no rules, you will take advantage of people who are in a weaker position. I guess this kind of a society will be a very unhappy society because you have given money as an advance to some supplier and you're not confident whether that person will deliver goods to you because he knows that no action can be taken in case of non-delivery. So if there are no rules, I think we will be living in a very unhappy society. Now, now as a student, I always feel that you will understand things better when I give you a very relatable example. And I want these lectures and especially this subject to become very relatable to you. Okay, I want you to feel that that you use law in every aspect of your life. So I'm going to give you very relatable examples. Now let us take a relatable example in this case. You are aware that admissions in colleges are on are purely on merit. Yes, and that's how it should be. What if there are no rules? What if there is no merit system? What if I can admit any person in my college? So how much are you willing to pay? Tell me. If you're willing to pay 1 crore, you'll get admission. If you're not willing to pay 1 crore, then please find admission somewhere else. So what if there is no rule in the college? There is no rule for admissions. I will give admission to the person that I like or one who's ready to pay me money. Don't you think that the deserving candidates will be left out and the one who's ready to pay money will get admission? Isn't this unfair? So it is very, very important for us to have rules in society, to have rules in business also. When all these rules they come together, it forms an act. And when many acts come together, it forms law. Let us write all this. Okay, I think it is best that we make a note of yes, of all this. And we have now come to our classroom where we will write and make notes so that it helps us in last minute revision. See, whatever I'm going to discuss today may not be asked in the exam, but it will help you to gain clarity on the legal concepts that we are going to study. Students, whatever I'm going to teach in today's session, you may feel that, ma'am, will this really be asked in the exam? It may not be asked in the exam, but these are concepts which you will need when you progress. Okay, when you go to unit 3 or unit 4, I'm sure you will be applying these concepts. All right. So what we discussed, when rules come together, yes, when all the rules, when rules come together, it forms an act. And when many acts come together, it forms. We are going to study corporate law. And in that, we are going to study the Companies Act. Now, see, okay, I'll write this also in red. Did you see the connection over here? When many acts come together, it forms law. What is the meaning of the word corporate law? See, we understood what is law. Law is nothing but a set of rules. Corporate. What does the word corporate mean? Corporate means this is a law which applies to various corporations, associations, companies having separate legal identity. Okay, they have separate legal status in the eyes of law. Let us write it and then proceed with our discussion. So, if you want, you can make a note of this in your notebook. This is just an introduction to help you understand various terms. So, the word corporate, it includes company, corporations, associations, etc. Okay. So, laws which are made for the company, corporations, association, yes, many acts, they will ultimately form law. So there are many acts like the Companies Act, okay, and other acts which are applicable to companies, corporations, associations. So when all these acts they come together, it forms corporate law. If you see students, law is a very wide term. Okay, it's a very general term. It's a very wide term. It's a very wide term. It's also a very general term. Yes. Like, see, in this case, the word corporate law is so wide in its scope. It includes companies, acts which are applicable to company, corporations, associations. Yes. So the act which applies to company is the Companies Act. So there are many acts which when they come together, it forms the corporate law. All right. So this corporate law applies to companies, corporations, associations. So there are many other acts which will come together and make corporate law. That is a single term. The word corporate also, as I was saying earlier, the word corporate, okay, or we are going to study in section 2, clause 11, body corporate. Yes. So body corporate again is a very wide term. It includes a company. So what is the meaning of the word corporate? Corporate means having separate legal status, okay, or having separate legal identity in the eyes of law. So corporate law basically applies to companies, corporations, associations which are having separate status in the eyes of law. As I was saying, the word law is a very wide term. It's a very general term. Law basically means to make rules. Okay. What is to be done? That is included in law. I will explain it with an example. First, let us write it. Law basically covers what needs to be done. Okay. What? That question is answered through a law. Law actually makes the rules. We actually make the rules through a law. Okay, so what is to be done? Like, say, for example, in case you want to do business in a company, what is required? You need to incorporate a company. Okay, you need to give it a corporate status. Only then you can claim the benefits or the privileges of a company. If you want to offer shares to the public, if you want to offer your securities and list them on the stock market, you need to be a company. So that is a law. Law says that only public companies can offer shares to the public. Okay, only a public company can list the shares on the stock market. So this is law. What needs to be done? Okay, but how it needs to be done? Like you are saying, I should incorporate a company. Only then I will get the benefit of the company form of business. Okay, that incorporation procedure needs to be done. That is law. What needs to be done? You need to incorporate a company. Now, how that company should be incorporated? What is the procedure? What needs to be done? That is mentioned in the act. So, act basically tells me the procedures that need to be followed. It answers the question of how it needs to be done. What is the procedure? Okay. So basically, how that particular thing needs to be done. So we'll leave it at this. The procedures, like kaise karna hai, that is answered in the act. So procedure for incorporation of the company. If you want to get the shares listed, well, this is the procedure. I'll give you a few other examples also, which we will study later. If I want to change, or let's say I want to shift, that's a better word. If I want to shift the registered office of the company. So let's say I want to shift from one state to the other state. So what is the procedure? Law says, company law says, yes, you may shift. But how that is to be done is mentioned in the act. So that procedure is given in the act. See, sometimes the words company act and company law, it is used interchangeably because ultimately everything are rules. Okay, everything is rules. So yes, companies act or company law as they call it, it may mean the same. But this is generally a very detailed explanation of what exactly is the difference between corporate law and the Companies Act. So if I want to shift the registered office from one place to another, okay, what about ROC filings? Yes, we need to file certain things with the ROC So what is the procedure? What is the time within which the filing should be done? What is the fees that needs to be paid? Everything is mentioned in the act. And yes, those acts also have at least one set of rules attached to them. We will be studying that very soon. Let's say that I want to issue bonus shares. Okay, so a company can also issue bonus shares. So the company law allows it. Yes. So bonus shares can be issued. How it is to be done, what is the procedure that is given in the act. So basically, the act gives us the procedure. But yes, again, we may use the word company, law, company, act interchangeably. That is how it is done practically. All right. So this is basically the meaning of corporate law. And our subject is corporate and other laws. I will be going through the syllabus in my next session. But yes, it is important for us to know the subject that we are learning and also what is the meaning of that word and what is the relevance of that in the business world. Do you know how an act is made? See, we are studying the Companies Act. You should have a basic understanding of how laws are made in our country. See, in our country, Parliament is the lawmaking authority and it is the president who enforces these laws. Okay. So in our country, the once the assent of the president is received, only then the act comes into force. Okay. So Parliament is the law making authority. So what is the procedure that we need to follow? Now, before I go through the procedure, let me discuss again a very relatable example with you. And on the basis of that example, then we will go through the procedure. So it is just that you will link that example. Okay. Now, let's say that you have been given a project in your college. Okay. So nowadays you get so many projects, reports are to be prepared. So let's say that I'll just write it down so that you are able to relate the steps of my example with how laws are made. So let's say that in a college, you are asked to make a project report. You have to make a proper report. Now, you are not used to making reports, right? So you research on the topic, you take help of Chat GPT. I didn't say that. So you take the help of Chat GPT, and it will never happen that you are very satisfied. Okay, this is something that I'm going to submit. I don't think that will ever happen. So what you have decided that I will make a draft first. Yes, that it makes sense. So you have made a draft report. Now, this draft is like, okay, I can make changes. I want to just show it to someone and then I will finalize it. So you make a draft. Now, you will either go to your parent if you feel that they will be able to help you, or you may go to your teacher. Okay? So let's say that you took that draft and you told them that please review it once. If it is fine, then I'll finalize it. And if you feel that changes are required, please let me know. I'll do that. What will they do? They will first read it. Yes, they will read the entire draft report. Only then they will be in a position to offer comments. So they will read the entire thing and then they will discuss it with you. They will suggest changes. Okay. After that, yes, you will make the changes and your final report is ready. Isn't this a very simple procedure that you normally follow for projects? Now relate this with the sequence or the procedure in which laws are made. Do you think that the act is finalized and then it is immediately notified to the public that from tomorrow you need to follow this? No, it never happens. See, and we are in a democratic country. So it is not that, okay, this is something which you need to follow. We will not consider your opinion. It never happens that way. So in a democratic country, we also accept the views of the public. Like take the example of ICAI. When they came up with a new scheme, they didn't say that this is the new scheme everybody has to follow. They invited suggestion. They invited people to come and offer changes, suggestions. Like a student or a teacher They could also give their suggestion that this is something which we feel will not work or you should pay attention to this. So they invited suggestions from people. Yes. So in the same manner, before the act is made, they prepare a draft. Okay. That draft is known as a bill. What is that draft known as? It's known as a bill. So they prepare a draft version of the act. That draft is known as a bill. Now, this bill is presented to either Lok Sabha or Rajya Sabha. See, bill can be presented to either houses of the parliament, either Lok Sabha or Rajya. We need approval of both. But we can start by presenting the bill to either Rajya Sabha or Lok Sabha. There are certain bills which have to be presented to the Lok Sabha first, like money bills. But other than those few exceptions, you can present the bill to either Rajya Sabha or Lok Sabha. Now, I am assuming that we have presented the bill, the draft version of the act. We have presented that to the Lok Sabha. Now, what is the procedure that happens? Just keep this in mind. Okay, so a draft is ready. Then we go to the parent or teacher. Okay, so in the same manner, a draft is ready and we place it before the House of Parliament, that is Lok Sabha. Now there are so many drafts which they may be receiving. Not every draft is worth discussing. So they will send this to the standing committee. Okay, now before that, there is one step. The fact that a draft has been received by Lok Sabha will be notified in the official gazette. Arey, listen. A draft has been received by the Lok Sabha and we are reviewing it. So they will notify it in the official gazette. Now, official gazette is a booklet which is issued to make public announcements by the central government. Earlier, yes, they would print, but now soft copies are also available. So a bill is placed before the Lok Sabha. It is published in the official gazette. Then they send it to a standing committee. I will make you write. I have all the steps, but just first understand. Okay, so they will send it to a standing committee. Now, what is the work of a standing committee? They will examine the report, all right, and they will decide whether it is worth discussing. Once they are convinced that, oh, all right, let us, discuss it, then discussions will start in the Lok Sabha. First, the bill will be read clause by clause in the same manner as your parent first read the entire report. So the bill will be read. Okay, the bill will be read in the Lok Sabha. After reading, they will start the discussion and debate. So few may be in favor, few may be against the bill. Once it is passed by the Lok Sabha, then it will be sent to the Rajya Sabha. And the entire procedure will be repeated. The draft will be read clause by clause. Then there will be a debate. After it is approved, it is assented to by the Rajya Sabha. Once both the houses of parliament give their approval, it will then be sent to the president for his assent or consent. Once the president offers their consent, the bill has now become an act. Okay, so this is how the bill becomes an act. I have a procedure mentioned over here. You can write it down. We are going to discuss this again when we discuss the chapter General Clauses Act. So a bill has to pass through various stages before it becomes an act of parliament. So what is the first stage? We will introduce the bill. Bill is nothing but the draft of that act. You will introduce it either in the house of, in either house of parliament. So you introduce it either in the Lok Sabha or the Rajya Sabha. Unless it's an exception and it has to go through Lok Sabha first. So I will introduce it in either Lok Sabha or Rajya Sabha. It will then be published in the official gazette, making a public announcement that a bill has been placed. We will then refer it to the standing committee. Now, why? Not every bill is worth discussing. They will examine it, they will make a report, and they will give it to the Lok Sabha because it was introduced there. Then general discussion on the bill will start and it will be read clause by clause. After that, there will be a debate. Points will be placed in support or against the bill. After it is approved by the Lok Sabha, it will be sent to the Rajya Sabha and the entire procedure will be repeated where it will be read clause by clause and then there will be a debate. Once the Rajya Sabha approves it, once we receive the approval of both the houses of parliament, okay? Concurrence means we are asking the other house also to approve it. To concur, it means to come on the same page. So when both the houses of parliament, they give their approval, it will then be sent to the president. After we receive his assent means consent. After we receive his assent, then it will be, then that bill will become an. So this is how bill becomes an act. You may now pause the video and copy this in your notebook. Done writing? Okay, let us proceed. Now, see, there are so many different kinds of organizations, right? We cannot just start by saying that, oh, company is the best form of organization. Forget about the rest. We need to be convinced that yes, genuinely, company is a suitable form of organization for our business. So I have a friend, Karan. Now, before I discuss this, names are purely coincidental, no intention to use anybody's name. Okay. But you will understand, right? I have a friend, Karan, and he wants to start a garment manufacturing business. Okay. So he wants to start a garment manufacturing business. And he has come to you. Just let me check whether recording. So he wants to start a garment manufacturing business. So he has approached you and he wants your advice. Now you may feel that, ma'am, this is so basic. Do we really need to discuss all this? We already know about it. See, students, I'm very sure that this will not be asked in the exam. But you know, when you start working and you start practicing, you may be asked a question by any client as to, see, I want to start a business. This is my line of business. You tell me which kind of organization is suitable for me. So you must know the different features of these organizations and a comparative feature also. So that you can tell him that, see, these are the features and I feel according to my knowledge, this is the best form of organization for you. Because there are so many ways in which people can do business nowadays. Like you can do it alone, like a proprietor, or you can start a business in partnership, or an LLP, or a company form of business. So first you need to be convinced which business is suitable for him, only then you will be able to give a proper advice to your client. Yes. So I have a friend, Manish, Karan, and he wants my advice. Similarly, you may also have clients who may, okay, let's say that he's your client, okay? So you will be able to advise better. So he's your client and he has come to you and he says that I want to start a business. You advise the best form of organization for him. So what you do is you prepare a table, okay, and you give him a comparison. Because, you know, when they see it, they will be able to understand it better. You say, see, this is a comparative table. I'll list down all the features and then we will decide which form of organization is suitable for you. Okay. So you call him and you say that first you decide whether you want to do this business alone or you want to do it with someone. So he says, I can't work alone. Okay. I can't do everything on my own. So we say that you find people. So he brings in his friend Manish and Apurva. Okay. Again, names are purely coincidental. So he brings his friend Manish and Apurva, and now they are all sitting in our office, and we have to advise them the best and the most suitable form of organization for their business. So I remind him that, see, you mentioned that you don't want to do business alone. So proprietary is not for you, but then let's compare it. Like, what if you change your mind? Right now, you have not incorporated anything. So to inform you, sole proprietary is an unorganized form of business. There are basically no rules as such for it. So people do the business the way they like. And it is basically suitable for a small business. Now, Karan looks at us and says, darling, I never do any small kind of business. So we say, all right, then proprietary is ruled out for you. Okay. But we will still compare it. So let's now decide the number of members required to start a proprietary business. It's not rocket science. We need only one person, minimum and maximum one. Now, no need to write this table in your notebook, but let me complete it and then I will give you time in case you wish to copy it. You can do that. But first, let me write it. Okay. Partnership. How many persons required to form a partnership business? So we need minimum 2, maximum is 50. The maximum number was never mentioned in the Partnership Act. It was always given in the Companies Act. So as per section 464 of the Companies Act. Yes, is this important for exam? I don't think so, but you should know about it just for our knowledge. As per section 464 of the Companies Act, you can have maximum 50 persons in your partnership. If you increase beyond 50, then you must immediately get yourself registered as a company. Failing which, right, if you don't do that, you will be considered as an illegal association having no standing in the eyes of law. So you better get yourself converted if you want to increase the number of partners beyond 50. Now, a company may be either a private company or a public company. Yes, so we have either a private company or a public company. Okay. Now, in private company, I can have minimum 2. I need minimum 2 and maximum I can have 200. These limits are given in the act only. Public requires minimum 7. Maximum, there is no limit. I can have any number of members. Oh. I can have any number of members in a public company. There's no limit. So what is the capital contribution known as? Just for our knowledge, how much capital contribution can we expect? See, in case of proprietary business, it will be very low because how much will one person contribute? In partnership, it will be medium. Why? Because I can have maximum 50 persons contributing. So medium amount of capital can be raised. But in case of a company, actually a very high amount of capital can be raised. And if you are a public company, there's actually no limit because you can have any number of members. So these members can bring in any amount of capital that you can ever imagine. You just need to issue shares and you can have enormous amount of capital that can be raised. So because I should say there's no limit, the arrow should be like this. Because there's no limit on the maximum number of members, I can have very high amount of capital. What is this capital known as? This is known as proprietor's capital. In partnership, we call partner's capital. And in the company, we call it share capital. Now, I agree that at this stage, we need not discuss everything in detail because anyways, we are going to study about share and share capital later. But because that topic we are discussing it, I think we should, now only discuss something about share capital. So just to give you an idea as to what exactly do we mean by share capital in the practical sense. Now, what is the meaning of the word capital? The word capital is not cool, it is pool. It is a pool of money. Yes? What is the meaning of the word capital? Capital means a lot of money which is put together. That is capital. So in our case, Mr. Karan, Manish, and Apurva, they have decided that we will bring money to start the business. Karan says, I will bring 10 crore. Manish says 5 crores. Apurva says, I will also bring 5 crores. So we will bring in 20 crores and we will start the business. Later on, Karan says, oh, we have accumulated a lot of money. How much is mine? So we say that out of 20 crores, you have brought in 10 crores. Yes. So you have brought 10 crores out of a total capital of 20 crores. What is this money? This pool of money. This is capital. Okay, capital means a pool of money. Out of this pool, Karan has brought 10 crores. So 10 crores out of 20 means your share is 50%. Out of the total capital, it is 50%. Manish, you have brought in 5 crores out of 20 crores. So out of the 20 crore of capital, what is your share? 5 crores. That is comes to 25%. Same goes for Apurva. So this is their share in the capital of the company. Okay. Now, Karan raises a doubt and he asks us, see, what if I want to sell my share to someone? How will I know what is the value of it? How will I know? And I don't want to sell everything. So can you give me the cost of 1 unit of my share? Okay. So we tell him that let's put a value to it. And that is known as the face value of share. Let's say it is 10 rupees. Okay. 10 rupees. So because he has asked me the value of 1 unit, I will break it into the smallest unit and that is known as a share. See, again over here we were talking in percentage term and it was a total term, right? Now we have broken it down into a single unit that is actually known as a share. So we say that, see, if the price of 1 unit is 10 rupees, you have contributed 10 crore rupees. Let me put the money sign here. So if we see you have 1 crore shares of rupees 10 each, giving a total contribution in the capital as 10 crores. Okay. So we tell him that if we break it into 1 unit, you will be having 1 crore shares, which you can now sell. If you want to sell all the shares or if you want to sell just one share, it will be 10. If you want to sell at premium, you can keep 10 as the base price and you can charge any premium on that. That is up to you. But the price for you is 10 rupees per share. And according to this price, you have 1 crore shares. Now you can transfer any number that you want. So when we break the capital into a smallest unit, that unit is known as a share. So what is share? It is the smallest unit into which the capital of the company is divided. It's the smallest unit. So this actually is the meaning of share capital. All right. If you want, you can write it later. I will show it to you. What are the owners known as? Yes, here he is known as a proprietor. Here they are known as partners. And here they are known as shareholders. They hold shares, right? What is the liability of a proprietor? It's unlimited. This is the worst feature. My personal assets are also liable. So there is always a fear of the personal assets being liable. In case of partnership, it is joint, several, and unlimited. I'm liable not only for my share, but also for the share of other partners. In a company, it is limited. Best feature. Limited means it may be limited either by shares or by guarantee. But I agree, we can also have unlimited liability company. It's possible. See, in case of unlimited liability, it doesn't mean that my liability is always unlimited. Okay. In case of an unlimited liability company, my liability will be limited during the lifetime. It will be unlimited only at the time of winding up. So during the lifetime, I get to enjoy limited liability. It is only unlimited at the time of winding up. We'll worry about that later. Yes? What is the meaning of limited liability? See, limited means that my liability is limited by the amount of share, by the face value, nominal value of share. I cannot tell him that, see, I need more money. So instead of 10 rupees, now you give 12 rupees. We can't do that. He has purchased shares of 10 rupees, he will pay only 10 rupees. What if the company doesn't have money? Can I ask him to bring it from his home? No. This is the only liability that he has towards the company. Now, this liability may be limited by shares or it may be limited by guarantee. What is the meaning of guarantee? This is the money which I will receive at the time of winding up. Okay, so members, they promise that at the time of winding up, this is the amount that we will give. So it can be different. Like I'm guaranteeing 50,000, somebody may say 10,000. Do these organizations enjoy separate legal status? Proprietary, no. Partnership, yes. No, sorry. Company, yes. What is the meaning of separate legal status? It means that company is different from the members who have formed it. Company can have its own assets. Company can have its own liabilities. Company can file a case. Case can be filed against the company. It's a separate person in the eyes of law capable of contracting. But that is not available in case of proprietary. In case of a proprietor's business, there is no distinction between business and him. In case of partnership also, there is no separate legal. Who manages the business? In case of a proprietary, management is in the hands of the proprietor himself. Here it is managed by partners, but company need not worry. For them, it is managed by the board of directors. So members need not worry about management. Business document. Any document with self? No, that's not possible. So proprietary, there's no document. Partnership, yes. There is the partnership deed. In company also, we have the memorandum and articles of association. So what happens in memorandum? Do you know the difference? The memorandum of association defines the scope of powers of the company. What does it mean? It means that the company can enter into only those contracts which are authorized by the memorandum. Like in our case, my garment manufacturing company. This authorizes the company only to manufacture garments, nothing else. Can this company take contract for manufacturing tires? No. You can enter into only those contracts which are authorized by the memorandum. So it defines the scope, the sphere of power of the company. So basically, memorandum tells us what a company can do, what is the scope of powers. Yeah, it answers the question, kya kar sakti hai? What can it do? And how it is to be done. That is given in the articles. This defines the procedures, or it mentions, we can say, the procedures, limits. Like, we are allowing the company to borrow money. It's allowed as per the memorandum. But we are imposing restrictions. The directors can borrow only up to 10 crore. Beyond that, they need the approval of the shareholders. So it mentions the limits. It also mentions the internal rules and regulation of the company. How to call a meeting, how to issue shares, then forfeiture of shares. Procedures basically are given over here. Okay, so procedures are given. So it means it answers the question how it is to be done. कैसे करना है. Okay, that is given in the article. What is the effect of death, insolvency, insanity? It comes to an end. Proprietary business comes to an end because the proprietor dies and there's no one to carry on the business. The son, the legal heir may want to, but it's not necessary. They may continue, but it actually comes to an end. In case of partnership, there is dissolution. See, you may dissolve the partnership or you may dissolve the firm. So if there are three partners, one dies, this is dissolution of partnership. But if there are two partners and one dies, then this is dissolution of the firm. Yes. What about company? Are company is not affected. There's no effect. Members may come, members may go. Company continues till it is wound up. This is known as perpetual succession. Okay, this is known as perpetual succession. So we are not concerned about death, insolvency, insanity. Company continues to exist till it is wound up. So students, this is some basic idea about the kind of business. Now let us advise our clients as to which type of organization is suitable for them. Now let us highlight the one which is best. Okay, the best features are available with. Let's see. See, if you are a company, there's no limit on the maximum number of members. More the members, higher will be the amount of capital. So the capital contribution is very high. Then these 2 points are not relevant for comparison. The liability is limited. I think this is one of the most important features. And in case of partnership also, the liability is unlimited. I think this is a very big deterrent. You're always scared of your personal assets being liable. So here also, liability is limited in company. I think that's a very good factor. Separate legal entity is enjoyed by a company. Company is separate from the members. I cannot be held liable if the company does something wrong. Management, I need not worry about management. It is managed by the board of directors. There is a business document and it is very important to have rules because if there are no rules, people will behave in the manner that they feel. Now, I am a shareholder. I have given money to the company. There is no memorandum and articles. They will use the money the way they like. I'm not even sure whether I wanted to invest in that area. Like I had given it to an investment, let's say my shares, I had purchased shares of a company which was into construction. Now they have started manufacturing. They have put their money in IT. Now you are a real estate developer. You're a construction company. You're investing in information technology. You also have a grocery business. I did not want to invest my money in all these fields. So if there are no rules, my money will be invested in areas that I never wanted to invest in the first place. So it is very important to have rules in the form of memorandum and articles of association. Articles also puts restrictions on the company. See, we have given the board of directors the right to manage the company, but we cannot give them unlimited powers. Powers are restricted with the help of the memorandum and mostly by the articles. We put restrictions. We impose rules and regulations in the man. See, this is how you need to manage the company. You have to follow this. So rules are necessary. That is why we had discussed the initial part in detail. And the company is not affected by death, insolvency, insanity. It continues to run without any fear of it being, the working may be interrupted by death, insolvency, insanity of a member. So it continues, and that is perpetual succession. So I think after our discussion, I can actually conclude that incorporating a company is actually beneficial. And I had done this comparison when I was incorporating my company for these lectures. So I had an option to start business in partnership or LLP or company, but I chose company. Also, if you see Shark Tank, this valuation, etc., okay, that is given to companies. You have shares, you can bring in people, you have valuation, you can sell it, you can sell your business. That valuation game is possible when you have a company. So I think it's a very lucrative form of organization. Don't you think so? Okay, so now we have advised our friends that, see, you should start a company. But just discussing it with you casually, do you actually know how this word came into existence? Company is actually a mixture of two Latin words. Com, which means with or together, and pani, which means bread. Bread? This is not a cooking show. What is bread doing here? Now, see, company means to come together and discuss business over a meal. Now, what happened in the leisurely past? Why am I saying leisurely past? Because that time I think businesses were operating very coolly. There was no pressure. There was no social media. And I seriously feel that we are living in a time wherein, yes, there is abundance of opportunities, but I think we are also working round the clock. Don't you think so? That things have changed after COVID. Everybody is running, everybody is doing something. We want to be the best, we want to be number one, we want that my company's name should be written. I want to be a unicorn, I want to be the most successful person, I want to earn in crores. Life has become so stressful, we have actually stopped living, I think. Don't you think so? We have no personal life. So anyways, um in the leisurely past, these merchants would take advantage of festive gatherings and discuss business over a meal. So, like in an area when there is a festive gathering, like a mela kind of a thing. So, people come together, they discuss business, and just relate this to your practical life. Whenever you and your family members meet, like, an extended family, like your uncles, etc., cousins, when you meet for Raksha Bandhan, Diwali, or any other festival, when everybody comes to, let's say, your house, after the festivities are over, like it's a birthday party, after everything is over, and you sit to eat, slowly these groups will start forming. The men will make their own group, the ladies will go into another room, kids are busy playing games, or they are busy in their own world. And what do your fathers discuss? What do these men discuss? They discuss business. Are what is going on in the share market? Oh, what is new in your business? Inevitably, the discussion will shift to business. Don't you think so? So, what is happening in this case? You are discussing business over a meal, isn't it? I have a friend and he works in a pharma company, and I was just talking to him and he says, I have a very busy tour. I said, why? What happened? He was traveling to Europe, I think. And he said, oh, I have breakfast meeting with this person, then lunch meeting with that person. I said, meeting and, over breakfast. Why? You go to his office, no, and have breakfast in peace. He said, I can go to the office, but generally we we need to inform about the new product launches and some changes. So when you go in an office, it becomes a very formal environment, and these discussions don't happen that effectively. But when you're having breakfast, it's a very light atmosphere, and you're very relaxed. You don't have the pressure of people, seeing you in the office. You're very relaxed and you can also talk something personal, bond with that person. Then you place the product. See, generally businesses happen over trust. Like I call someone for lunch, we have lunch, and I ask him, what is going on in your family? How many people in your family? Oh, what is your wife doing? Your children? And then we say, okay, these are my struggles. When you bond with that person, when that person starts trusting you, then they will give you orders. That is my observation. So here also, when he is going for a breakfast meeting, he knows it is a very relaxed mood. People are also ready to listen to your new product launches. There's no disturbance. Some secretary is coming or somebody else is coming, boss is coming. So he said that I prefer discussing this over a meal. That is a company. Yes. So even today, these things are so relatable that you are discussing business over a meal. But yes, I totally agree that nowadays, company, when we listen, to that word company, when we hear the word, we imagine a huge structure, a building, and for us, that is a company. So now the company has taken a very formal structure, but this is the basis of coming together and discussing business over a meal. And I think it is totally relatable even today. You want to start a business, you call your friend, Arichal, let's meet for a cup of coffee. You want to discuss anything, let's meet at that tea stall or we'll go for some snack. Don't you do that? And then you discuss your problem. That is nothing but a company. Yes. So that is the meaning of a company. Now, my friends, they are totally convinced that they would like to do business in a company form. So these people have come together. It is known as an association of persons, AOP. Now, the word person over here includes living person as well as artificial person. Oh, I did not pause here, right? Let's see. If you want to write this, please copy this in your notebook. I'll just wait for some time. I'll show it to you before I forget. I am sure you must have paused the video, gone back, and written it down, yes? Okay. So these people, they have come together. It's an association of person. The word person, it shows it may be a living person or an artificial person. One company can also incorporate another company. Now, when we say body of individuals, which you are going to study in tax, that word individual means only living people, living person. So these people have come together. Are they randomly coming together? No, they are coming with one common object of manufacturing garments. It's not just a random association. It's an association having some common object. What is that common object? Manufacturing of garments. People are randomly standing at the bus stop. Is it a company? No. It's not an association because they don't have any common object. Now, I want to claim all the benefits of a company. Will I be able to do that? No, nobody knows that such thing exists unless I register it. So this registration needs to be done with ROC, Registrar of Companies. Only then I will become a company. Now, what is a company? You have become a company means you are now an artificial person. Artificial person means you are a person capable of contracting. You have your own identity. You have your own separate legal status. You have an identity of your own. Now you are an association which is registered. You can have your own assets, liabilities. You can buy goods, you can sell goods, enter into contracts independently in your own name. So company is a separate person in the eyes of law. So association of persons having common object, they get themselves registered with ROC and then it becomes a company. Is it clear? So students, this was some basic idea about what is law, what is a corporate law, what is a company, why is it a suitable form of organization, and it is very essential that we register a company. Only then it is formed and you can enjoy the benefits of a company. In my next session, I will be starting the first chapter of your syllabus, that is the preliminary chapter. This basically covers all the definitions, and yes, it is important for exam. Any question may be asked on the definition. So I will see you next time, where we will start with the first chapter, that is a preliminary chapter. Please share this video with your friends, and the batches for this course have already started. You can enroll by clicking on the link given in the description as well as in the comment section. If you feel that you have enjoyed this video, do share it with your friends. Share it with someone you feel needs to understand this concept in detail. And if you have any query as far as the lectures are concerned or which course is suitable for you, if you have any query, you can contact me on the number given on my website and also in the description box. All right, students, so I take your leave and I will see you next time with a new topic, preliminary.